For the first time in 5 months, Voyager 1 is back in meaningful communication with Earth. And there were 4 solar flares on the sun at the same time this week. That news and more in this week's Space News from Ad Astra. Welcome, I'm Swapna Krishna. Well, I have the news we have all been waiting for. Voyager 1 is back in regular and meaningful contact with Earth. For the first time since November, the spacecraft is sending engineering data on the health of the spacecraft back to Earth. Here's a quick recap of what happened to Voyager 1. On November 14, 2023, Voyager 1, which is 15 billion miles away in interstellar space, stopped sending any meaningful data back to Earth. The spacecraft, which launched in 1977, always communicates with Earth in binary, zeros and ones, but this was gibberish. It was binary that made no sense, though engineers at NASA's JPL could tell that the spacecraft was receiving commands, it just couldn't respond in any meaningful way. Well, over the past 5 months, engineers narrowed the issue down to a faulty chip in the FDS, or Flight Data System. 3% of the FDS was corrupted, and because the FDS is what packages all the science data and the engineering data into a nice little bundle to send back to Earth, the data it was storing and sending was unreadable. In March, engineers sent a poke to Voyager 1, which was supposed to instruct it to try and route around any corrupted sections of the computer. It responded with its regular gibberish signal, but there was also a second signal that contained an entire readout of the FDS memory. Engineers were able to look at this readout and find the problem, but what was the solution? The team had to find another space in the FDS to put the science and engineering data. Remember, we're talking about a computer from the 1970s. Voyager 1's entire computer system, not just the FDS, the entire computer system has 69.63 kilobytes of memory. The issue was finding another space big enough to hold all of this data. They couldn't find it in one place, so they decided to try and break the data up into chunks. The problem then was adjusting the code to make sure each chunk knew where the other chunks were to ensure it still functioned as one complete unit. And just as a reminder for how difficult all of this is, it takes 22.5 hours for Voyager to receive a signal from Earth, and another 22.5 hours for us to receive the results. We're talking troubleshooting with a 45-hour round-trip travel time. On April 18th, the team sent Voyager 1 updated instructions on where to store its code. On April 20th, they received the first meaningful communication from Voyager 1 in 5 months. This is a huge step, but it's not the end of this saga. They still need to program the rest of the FDS code to ensure they can get all the data from Voyager 1. Right now, it's just engineering data on the health of the spacecraft, but there's still good science data there for the engineers. Moving on to our solar system, this week we got something incredibly cool, animation of a lava lake on Jupiter's moon Io. The spacecraft Juno recently did 2 flybys of Jupiter's moon Io, a volcanic world. The spacecraft got within 930 miles of the moon's surface, which gave us some of the most detailed close-up images of Io we've ever seen. They specifically got some really good data on a 200-kilometer long or 127-mile long lava lake called Loki Patera. And the team processed this into a cool animation that shows off the lava, as well as the islands we think are within this lava lake. In this Juno image, you can see Loki Patera here. It's the largest and most active volcano on Io that we know of. We think the black spots are hot sulfur lava, while the white spots are sulfur dioxide frost. Now here's the animation. We are zooming in on the lava lake created by Loki Patera. We think this lake is made of magma and rimmed with hot lava. Because Juno got a great reflection off of this lava lake when it made its flybys, we think it's a very smooth as glass lake. Moving on to some interesting science news though. Apparently scientists have discovered that a near-Earth asteroid is actually a chunk of the moon? We don't know a lot about near-Earth asteroids generally, also called Earth quasi-satellites, because they are small and difficult to detect and study. But we think there are around 30,000 of them. The asteroid Kamoʻoalewa was discovered in 2016, but scientists soon noticed it was different than other near-Earth asteroids. It orbits the Sun in synchronization with the Earth, it spins much faster than a typical asteroid, and it's remarkably stable. Most near-Earth asteroids only have stable orbits for a few decades, but it's looking like Kamoʻoalewa will be with us for millions of years. In 2021, scientists published a paper stating that Kamoʻoalewa appeared to be made of a silicate material that differed from the asteroids around it. It's not just that it was compositionally different, but that it was different than even other asteroids made of silicates. They noted that what it was compositionally similar to was the Moon. Well, now a new study appears to confirm this finding. Published in Nature Astronomy on April 19th, this study uses modeling to determine that not only is the asteroid Kamoʻoalewa of lunar origin, but it's from the Giordano Bruno crater on the Moon. In order to determine this, the scientists started with the hypothesis that the asteroid was indeed from the Moon, and then worked backwards. What kind of impact would cause an object of this size and shape to be ejected from the Moon? And what would cause it to be spinning so fast once it was ejected? They determined that Kamoʻoalewa's orbit, while more stable than other near-Earth asteroids, isn't completely stable, which means it had to be connected to a recent, in cosmological terms, crater. Something from the past 10 million years. And they had to match the size of the crater to the asteroid, which turned out to be the Giordano Bruno crater. A press release from the University of Arizona compares Kamoʻoalewa to the size of a Ferris wheel, 150 to 190 feet in diameter, or about 45 to 58 meters. The Giordano Bruno crater on the Moon is about 22 kilometers in diameter, or 13.5 miles across. This is the only near-Earth asteroid that we know of that we think might have a lunar origin. China is planning on launching Tianwen-2, an asteroid sample return mission, to Kamoʻoalewa in 2025, so we might have confirmation of these findings within the next few years. In cool news from our star, the Sun sent out 4 massive solar flares at once. Here's what happened. The Sun is currently at or very near solar maximum. Our star is on an 11-year cycle, and we're basically at the peak of that cycle right now. That means a lot of solar weather and solar activities, sunspots, solar prominences, solar flares, and coronal mass ejections. Early on April 23rd, NOAA sent out an alert that there was an electromagnetic burst for 2 minutes, likely in association with a solar flare. Well, it turns out there wasn't just one flare, there were 4 of them at the same time. Here's the video, and then I'll show it again and slow it down to explain what you're looking at. So this still image shows 3 bright spots, which are 3 solar flares associated with sunspots. Sunspots are cooler, darker regions on the sun's surface that are concentrations of the sun's magnetic field. They've made their way to the surface. You can't see it as much in this face-on image, but the spot in the middle is a filament, which is a loop of plasma on the sun. That's where the 4th flare is. These are called sympathetic solar flares, and they're explosions on the sun linked by magnetic loops within the sun's corona, the outer atmosphere, that we can't see. In launch news, things appear to be on track for the May 6th launch of Boeing Starliner. This will be the first crewed flight for the spacecraft, taking 2 astronauts to the International Space Station for a week. Starliner is greatly delayed. It was supposed to be a crew vehicle in regular use for flights to the ISS, along with SpaceX's Crew Dragon, which just had its 8th operational crewed flight, 9 if you include the test flight. This is the test flight of Boeing Starliner, so that tells you just how delayed this is. I'll have a much more in-depth video digging into Starliner and talking about this mission as well as why it's so delayed next week. And in other cool news, SpaceX launched a Falcon 9 this week and landed a booster for the 300th time. I like space stuff more than most people probably, I think, but I think no matter how you feel about space, the sight of one of these boosters turning around and coming back for a landing is just incredibly cool. And that is about all the space news I have for you this week. Thank you for watching. I am Swapna Krishna, and this is Ad Astra.